Greetings, YouTube! Yeah, I've worked way back into the WGS Arcade. We're back with more time, Tenshi. And as you guys saw in the last episode, Kyo and Rose ended up getting kidnapped by Mizuki and Bunny, and apparently they brought him into the same place where Kenji is, which will explain why Kenji is talking with Kyo right now. But we haven't seen Rose yet, so... And apparently, I don't believe Kyo and Rose have any idea what's going on in this particular time period in the future. But then again, you guys are probably just doing nothing but staring at Q in a Frenchman outfit with gigantic breasts. And I don't blame you. Anyway, that was the line in the last episode, so let's go ahead and get started. I felt myself go red, but brushed the thoughts off like always. I'm more worried about you. What happened? Did they hurt you?
No, it was more of the trip that... Ah!
What's wrong?
Why do I still have these?
She gestured to her chest, and I immediately knew what she was referring to, even if her hands were tied behind her back. I'm not sure. Do the effects of the time window usually wear off by now?
Physically, yes, and honestly, I don't feel any stranger than I usually do. It's as if all the estrogen went to us physically and none went to our mental states and caused our bodies to fatigue from overexposure. Michelle really messed up our transport.
We were both silent for a moment until Q finally remembered her original worries.
Where's Rose?
She's fine. She's right behind you. Still out like a light. She's a bit of a heavy sleeper. Don't worry. I've kept an eye on you both. They haven't done anything weird to you while you were out.
I see. That's nice, I suppose, but I don't understand, Kenji. You're captive. Why are you not bound up?
It's a bit of a long story, Kyo.
I'm not exactly going anywhere.
She rubbed her hands a bit, causing her chest to bobble in place from the movements. I collected my thoughts and came up with a way of telling her. Well, first off, we're in the future. Not sure how far in the future, but pretty far from the looks of it.
Right, that makes sense. Michelle pretty much deduced that when we were trying to track your location.
So the future is pretty bleak. I've seen outside and it looks like a wasteland everywhere. So basically what Chronotech was trying to do was go back in time and stop it from happening.
Really?
She sat there and thought over my simplified version of Chronotech's mission.
Well, their methods aren't exactly safe. Altering time can potentially rip everything apart.
They're not entirely convinced of that theory.
Neither are we, really, but we just didn't want a chance destroying our own time, was all. That's why we tried to stop them all the time. But I can understand why they find our interfering to be a bit troublesome to them, considering their disposition. But they could have just explained themselves.
I don't think you guys give him a chance to do that.
True. Tensei was furious when he saw his technology being used by someone else. Unfortunately, he didn't take into account that it might be just people from the future using his exact same technology for different purposes. Kenji, do me a favor.
What's that?
Can you, undo these ties, please? They're really uncomfortable.
Yeah, they sort of threatened me that.
If you're so important to them, I doubt they hurt you. Plus, if what you're saying is true, I have nowhere to run anyways. Michelle is the only one who knows how to work the time window, aside from Bunny and Mizuki, of course.
I suppose you have a point. All right. I carefully undid her bounds and keeping an eye out for Bunny and Mizuki. After finally undoing a slightly difficult knot, Mizuki must have been trying to prevent a second escape like mine, Kyo was free. Damn. There are so many thoughts in my head right now, just from that image. She sat up a bit straighter, sighing.
These still haven't gone back down.
She stared down at her chest, then around at her backside.
That too, huh?
I'm sure it's just because you're in an alternate time from your own.
That actually makes a lot of sense somehow.
We were both silent, still thinking through the logic of my situation. I got up and walked over to Rose, who was still out cold. I hope she's okay.
You really care about her, don't you?
Of course I do, Kyo. I care about both of you a lot. You've been so kind to me over the past week.
No, but Kenji, I can tell that you really care about her.
I turned my head, seeing her smile at me. I blushed, turning my gaze away abashedly. I mean, that doesn't mean I don't like you too, Kyo. It's just...
Silly Kenji, it's not a competition.
I turned to look at her again, the sprightly nature back behind her words. She smiled broadly at me.
I care a lot for you too, Kenji. You're a guy who's been kept with 3 different girls, and yet you have been nothing but kind and gracious to all of us. That sort of guy isn't easy to find.
She patted the floor next to her, and I sat. She huddled close, doing her best to comfort me. I'd be lying to say if it wasn't working.
When I was back home studying at the University of Tokyo, you'd be surprised at the parallels and differences between our school system and yours. But guys, well, they can be just the same. Just as shallow, just as fickle, and just as disrespectful.
She shifted in place before continuing.
Of course, there were plenty of nice guys too, but for some reason we have this stigma over here in the States that being polite and respectful towards girls like me is a bad thing? It's always confused me.
Well, I don't think it's that. I think it revolves more around the idea that just because a guy is good, he feels entitled to have a girl because of his actions.
Ah, I mean, that makes sense, actually.
We were both silent again. I could tell Kyo wanted to say something, but she wanted space in between the conversation before she brought it up.
Do you ever wonder why I never really came on to you like the other girls, Kenji?
Well, I mean, we still barely know each other. I thought that was the main reason. Wait, does Kyo play for the other team? I wonder if she plays for the other team.
There's that. You're still a fairly new person in my life, Kenji, but I still feel as if I can trust you. It's not that, though. I was always just kind of nervous. I've never been the flirtatious type. The truth is, Kenji, I do like you quite a bit, just for who you are. Kyo.
I was at a loss for words. Kyo just beamed another one of her famous smiles at me before continuing.
But I was never one to make the first move. And I knew that you were scared to do the same yourself, so I knew that this sort of thing wouldn't work out, and Rose, well...
She glanced at her friend, and I thought I could see a glimmer of envy, but if it was there, it was extinguished almost immediately.
She always knew which moves to make outside of battle, hee hee.
She turned her face to me, setting a hand on my lap. It immediately got my attention. I inhaled sharply and looked over at her. Kyo?
So if I can indulge just this once before I lose all my chances, I'd be honored to be your friend from here on out, Kenji.
And with that, she went silent, moving her face in. I was frozen to the spot, still enamored by her words before our lips met. Oh, Kenji's about to get himself some. We sat there, my eyes slowly closing as the fear dripped away. I felt her hand go up to my face as the embrace continued for what it felt like forever until finally we separated. She sat back, cheeks flushed, breathing heavy. I knew I wasn't that much different from her condition at the moment. It took a while before either of us spoke up. Kyo, what exactly?
We don't have to speak of this again if you don't want to, Kenji. Just know I'm here for you always if you need me, okay?
I mean, how do you really expect me to take that?
Yeah, I know. Not the most romantic setting, I suppose.
She was obviously flustered, not expecting my response.
It was kind of just spur of the moment. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It was nice. Really, I just didn't expect it, and, these sort of things just don't just go away. And in hindsight, he's referring to the boner he just got.
Yeah, I guess I should have thought of that through a bit better.
Before we could talk it out any further, Rose shuffled from our mutterings and her eyes flitting open slowly. It didn't take long for them to shoot open, her body going from the lying position on the floor to full-on sitting. her balance wobbling back and forth as she realized what was still attached to her chest.
Oh, fuck. Rose, you're awake!
Yeah, and apparently I still got a couple of blimps attached to my front. Where on earth are we, Kyo?
Chronotech's lab? Kenji, you should probably explain it a bit.
Yeah, you're right. I went on to explain what I had said to Kyo, filling Rose in on every detail of Chronotech's plans, as well as Kyo and I's activities should she have regained her consciousness. Well, obviously not all of our activities, but at least our discussion before that. I see. She took a moment to soak in the information, her hand wriggling in the restraints. Here, let me help you with that. After a bit of a struggle, she was freed from her bindings. She rubbed her wrist before standing, wobbling slightly over before gaining her center of gravity. Well, before we talk more with Rose, what we're going to do, guys and gals, we're going to go ahead and call it an episode, and when we return to the arcade, we're going to see how Rose is doing and what her response is to all this entire situation. So, with that being said, I am your friendly neighborhood WrestleGamer, and I will see you at the next Warp Zone. Bye, guys! Oh, jeez. Sound of stretching fabric rang through the silent chamber. Rose clutched her.
Isn't he a business, lady?